The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble courtyard of Buckingham Palace as Sergeant James Mitchell completed his routine security check. After 15 years of loyal service to the Royal Guard, he had developed an instinct for danger that had never failed him. Today, that instinct was screaming. Mitchell had noticed the same man in a dark coat lingering near the palace gates for 3 consecutive days. The stranger carried himself with military precision, his eyes constantly scanning the building's entrances and exits. What troubled Mitchell most was how the man seemed to know the exact timing of the guard rotations, always positioning himself to avoid direct contact with security personnel. During his morning briefing, Mitchell approached his commanding officer, Colonel Patricia Hawthorne, with his concerns. She listened intently as he described the suspicious individual, noting the man's apparent knowledge of palace protocols and his systematic observation patterns. Hawthorne had served in intelligence before joining the Royal Guard and immediately recognized the signs of professional surveillance. The decision was made to discreetly investigate the mysterious observer. Mitchell volunteered to conduct the operation, using his off-duty hours to follow the man without arousing suspicion. What he discovered would shake the foundations of royal security and expose a plot that reached the highest levels of government. The stranger, who Mitchell learned was named Victor Petrov, was staying at a modest hotel in Westminster under a false identity. Through careful observation, Mitchell discovered that Petrov was meeting regularly with individuals who appeared to be coordinating some form of operation. The meetings always took place in different locations, following sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques. Mitchell's training kicked in as he documented each encounter, photographing faces and noting license plates. He began to realize that this was no ordinary threat to royal security. The level of organization and the resources being deployed suggested something far more sinister than a typical security breach. When Mitchell reported his findings to Colonel Hawthorne, she immediately escalated the matter to the highest levels of palace security. Within hours, representatives from MI5 and Scotland Yard were briefed on the situation. The gravity of the threat became clear when intelligence analysts identified several of Petrov's associates as known foreign operatives. The investigation revealed that Petrov was part of an international network planning to infiltrate a major royal event, scheduled for the following week. The group had been studying palace security for months, identifying weaknesses and planning their approach with military precision. Their target was not just any royal family member, but a visiting foreign dignitary whose assassination could trigger an international crisis. Mitchell's keen observation and willingness to act on his instincts had uncovered a plot that could have changed the course of history. The royal family was immediately placed under enhanced security protocols, and the planned event was secretly relocated to a more secure venue. However, the investigation was just beginning, and the full extent of the conspiracy was yet to be revealed. As night fell over London, Mitchell found himself at the center of an operation that would test every skill he had learned during his military and security career. The warning he had raised that morning had set in motion a chain of events that would expose corruption, betrayal, and a threat to the very stability of the British government. Little did he know that his actions would soon make him a target, forcing him to choose between his duty to the crown and his own survival. The emergency meeting at MI5 headquarters took place in the early hours of the morning, with representatives from multiple intelligence agencies gathering in a secure conference room. Mitchell found himself surrounded by individuals whose names he would never know, their faces grim as they reviewed the evidence he had collected over the past week. Detective Inspector Sarah Chen from Scotland Yard's Counter-Terrorism Unit presented the analysis of Petrov's network. The investigation had revealed connections to a sophisticated criminal organization with ties to several foreign governments. What had initially appeared to be a simple assassination plot was actually part of a larger scheme to destabilize British political relationships with key allies. The foreign dignitary targeted for assassination was Prince Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, whose visit to London was meant to finalize a crucial energy agreement between Britain and the Middle East. His death on British soil would not only destroy the trade deal, but would also create diplomatic chaos that could last for decades. The conspirators had chosen their target carefully, knowing that the economic and political ramifications would extend far beyond a single tragedy. Mitchell learned that Petrov was not the mastermind behind the operation, but rather a skilled operative taking orders from someone much higher up the chain. Intelligence intercepts had revealed coded communications between Petrov and an unknown contact referred to only as the architect. This mysterious figure appeared to have detailed knowledge of both British intelligence operations and royal security protocols. As the investigation deepened, a disturbing pattern emerged. Several recent security breaches at government facilities could now be traced back to the same network that was targeting Prince Abdullah. It became clear that the conspiracy had been years in the making, with operatives systematically infiltrating various levels of the British security apparatus. The most shocking revelation came when Colonel Hawthorne presented evidence suggesting that someone within the palace security structure was feeding information to the conspirators. The detailed knowledge that Petrov's team possessed about guard rotations, security protocols, and planned events could only have come from an inside source. This meant that Mitchell and his colleagues were not just hunting external threats but also dealing with betrayal from within their own ranks. Mitchell was assigned to work directly with Agent Rebecca Foster from MI5's Counterintelligence Division. Foster had spent years tracking international criminal networks and immediately recognized the sophisticated nature of the operation they were facing. She explained to Mitchell that they were dealing with professionals who had likely spent months or even years preparing for this moment. The decision was made to allow Petrov's network to continue their preparations while maintaining constant surveillance. This dangerous strategy would give investigators the best chance of identifying all members of the conspiracy, including the inside source who was providing classified information. Mitchell would continue his regular duties while secretly feeding false information through official channels to help identify the traitor. The plan required Mitchell to act as if nothing had changed while secretly coordinating with a team of undercover agents who had taken positions around London. Every member of the palace security staff was now under scrutiny, their communications monitored and their movements tracked. The investigation had transformed from a simple security threat into a complex counterintelligence operation. As Mitchell returned to his duties at the palace, he realized that everyone around him was now a potential suspect. Colleagues he had worked with for years might be involved in the conspiracy, and every conversation could be monitored by hostile forces. The weight of responsibility was enormous, knowing that a single mistake could result in not just the death of Prince Abdullah but potentially trigger an international crisis. The psychological pressure was intense as Mitchell struggled to maintain his normal routine while constantly analyzing the behavior of his fellow guards. He found himself questioning every interaction, wondering if seemingly innocent conversations were actually coded communications with enemy agents. The paranoia was justified, as intercepted communications revealed that the conspirators were aware that their operation had been compromised and were actively searching for the source of the intelligence leak. 3 days into the covert operation, Mitchell received an encrypted message through official channels that made his blood run cold. The message, supposedly from Palace Security Headquarters, contained detailed information about Prince Abdullah's revised security arrangements. However, Mitchell recognized immediately that these were the false details he and Agent Foster had planted to identify the insider threat. The trap had worked. Someone within the palace security structure had taken the bait and was now transmitting classified information to hostile forces. Mitchell quickly contacted Foster through their secure communication protocol, and within hours they had identified the source of the leak. The revelation was devastating. Sergeant David Walsh, Mitchell's own partner for the past 3 years, was the traitor feeding information to Petrov's network. Walsh had been struggling with gambling debts for months, making him vulnerable to recruitment by foreign operatives who offered substantial payments for inside information. His financial desperation had led him to compromise not just his own integrity, but the safety of everyone he had sworn to protect. The discovery hit Mitchell particularly hard, as he had considered Walsh a close friend and trusted colleague. The decision was made to continue monitoring Walsh without alerting him to the fact that his betrayal had been discovered. This would allow investigators to feed him false information while tracking his communications with the enemy network. Mitchell found himself in the impossible position of working alongside a traitor while pretending that nothing had changed. Meanwhile, surveillance teams reported increased activity around potential target locations. Petrov's network had begun moving equipment and personnel into position, suggesting that the assassination attempt was imminent. Intelligence analysts worked around the clock to decode intercepted communications and identify the exact time and method of the planned attack. The breakthrough came when agents monitoring Walsh's communications intercepted a message containing specific details about Prince Abdullah's arrival ceremony. The conspirators planned to strike during the welcome parade, using a sniper positioned in a building overlooking the procession route. The assassination would take place in full view of international media, maximizing the political impact of the crime. Foster and Mitchell worked together to develop a counter-operation that would allow them to capture the entire network while protecting Prince Abdullah from harm. The plan was complex and dangerous, requiring perfect timing and coordination between multiple agencies. Any mistake could result in the successful assassination of a foreign dignitary on British soil. The most challenging aspect of the operation was maintaining the appearance of normal security protocols while secretly implementing enhanced protection measures. Mitchell had to coordinate with unmarked security teams while ensuring that Walsh remained unaware of the changes. This required careful manipulation of duty rosters and communication channels to keep the traitor isolated from sensitive information. As the day of Prince Abdullah's arrival approached, tension within the security apparatus reached breaking point. Every member of the legitimate security team was on edge, knowing that they were about to face a sophisticated enemy while dealing with betrayal from within their own ranks. Mitchell found himself constantly watching his back, unsure who else might be involved in the conspiracy. The psychological warfare intensified when Walsh began asking seemingly innocent questions about the revised security arrangements. Mitchell had to provide carefully crafted responses that would satisfy his partner's curiosity, without revealing the true nature of the counter-operation. The constant deception was exhausting, but Mitchell knew that the success of the mission depended on maintaining the pretense until the moment of truth. Intelligence. Reports indicated that Petrov's team had finalized their preparations and were now waiting for the signal to execute their plan. The sniper was in position, escape routes had been secured, and backup plans were ready in case the primary assassination attempt failed. Unknown to them, every move they made was being monitored by British security forces who were prepared to strike at the crucial moment. Mitchell spent his final night before the operation reviewing every detail of the plan, knowing that tomorrow would determine whether months of investigation and preparation would result in success or catastrophic failure. The weight of responsibility was enormous, as the fate of international relations hung in the balance of their ability to stop a carefully planned assassination while exposing a network of traitors and foreign operatives. The morning of Prince Abdullah's arrival dawned gray and overcast, with London streets lined with crowds eager to witness the historic diplomatic visit. Mitchell took his assigned position along the parade route, his earpiece crackling with communications from the command center, while his eyes constantly scanned the surrounding buildings for signs of threat. Agent Foster had positioned herself in the crowd, disguised as a tourist with a camera, while unmarked counter-sniper teams had taken positions on rooftops throughout the area. The building where intelligence suggested Petrov's sniper was located was under constant surveillance, though no direct action could be taken until the assassination attempt began. Walsh stood beside Mitchell, apparently unaware that his every movement was being monitored by hidden cameras and that his communications were being intercepted in real time. The traitor seemed nervous, constantly checking his watch and scanning the crowd with unusual intensity. Mitchell realized that Walsh was probably receiving final instructions from his handlers and preparing to play his role in the assassination plot. As Prince Abdullah's motorcade approached, Mitchell received a coded message through his earpiece indicating that the sniper had been spotted in the predetermined building. The terrorist was in position with a high-powered rifle, waiting for the perfect moment to take his shot. Counter-sniper teams were ready to neutralize the threat, but timing would be crucial to prevent any harm to the visiting dignitary. The plan suddenly became complicated when surveillance teams reported additional suspicious activity in buildings along the parade route. It appeared that Petrov's network had prepared multiple backup positions, with at least 3 potential sniper locations now identified. The assassination plot was more sophisticated than anyone had imagined, with redundant systems designed to ensure success even if the primary sniper was discovered. Mitchell felt his heart racing as he realized the full scope of the threat they were facing. The conspirators had spent months preparing for this moment, and they had contingency plans for every possible security response. The success of the counter-operation would require split-second timing and perfect coordination between multiple teams operating across the city. Walsh suddenly moved away from his assigned position, claiming he needed to check security at a nearby intersection. Mitchell immediately alerted Foster, who directed surveillance teams to follow the traitor while maintaining their distance. It became clear that Walsh was moving to a predetermined location where he could provide real-time intelligence to the assassination teams. As Prince Abdullah's vehicle came into view, Mitchell received urgent updates through his earpiece. The primary sniper was preparing to take his shot, while backup shooters were moving into their secondary positions. Counter-sniper teams were ready to engage, but they needed to wait until the last possible moment to ensure they could identify and neutralize all threats simultaneously. The tension reached its peak when Mitchell spotted Walsh speaking into a concealed communication device, apparently providing final targeting information to the assassination teams. This was the moment of truth that would determine whether months of investigation and preparation would succeed in preventing an international catastrophe. Foster gave the signal, and suddenly the quiet London morning erupted into controlled chaos. Counter-sniper teams engaged their targets simultaneously, while arrest teams moved in on Walsh and other identified conspirators. Mitchell found himself running toward his former partner, knowing that he had to prevent Walsh from escaping or destroying evidence that could implicate other members of the network. The confrontation with Walsh was brief but intense. The traitor, realizing that his betrayal had been discovered, attempted to flee through the crowd while destroying his communication equipment. Mitchell tackled him before he could escape, wresting the device away and ensuring that valuable intelligence about the conspiracy would be preserved for analysis. As sirens wailed across London and emergency response teams secured the area, Mitchell watched as Petrov and his associates were taken into custody. The assassination plot had been stopped just moments before it could be executed, but the investigation was far from over. The captured operatives would need to be interrogated, and the full extent of the network's activities would need to be uncovered. Prince Abdullah, unaware of how close he had come to death, continued with his official schedule under enhanced security protection. The diplomatic visit proceeded successfully, with the energy agreement signed as planned. However, behind the scenes, intelligence agencies were working frantically to understand how such a sophisticated operation had come so close to succeeding on British soil. In the aftermath of the thwarted assassination, Mitchell found himself in a secure interrogation facility, watching as Agent Foster questioned Viktor Petrov. The captured operative remained defiant, refusing to reveal information about his network or the identity of the mysterious figure known as the Architect. However, analysis of seized communication equipment and documents was beginning to reveal the true scope of the conspiracy. The investigation took a shocking turn when forensic analysts discovered that the network's operations extended far beyond the planned assassination of Prince Abdullah. Evidence suggested that the group had been responsible for several unexplained security breaches at government facilities over the past 2 years, including incidents that had previously been attributed to system failures or human error. Most disturbing was the discovery that the conspiracy had connections within multiple levels of the British government. Encrypted files found in Petrov's possession contained references to contacts in the Foreign Office, the Ministry of Defense, and even within parliamentary circles. What had begun as a simple assassination plot was revealing itself to be part of a long-term strategy to compromise British national security. Mitchell learned that his role in the investigation was far from over when Colonel Hawthorne informed him that he would be working directly with a joint task force comprising representatives from MI5, MI6, Scotland Yard, and military intelligence. The operation to uncover the full extent of the network would require months of careful investigation and could potentially expose corruption at the highest levels of government. The interrogation of Sergeant Walsh provided the first breakthrough in understanding The recruitment methods used by the foreign operatives. Walsh revealed that he had been approached gradually over a period of months, with his handlers first offering small amounts of money for seemingly harmless information. The payments had gradually increased as he provided more sensitive details, until he found himself so deeply involved that escape seemed impossible. Walsh's testimony also revealed that he was not the only security personnel who had been compromised. The network had systematically targeted individuals with financial difficulties, personal problems, or other vulnerabilities that could be exploited. This suggested that there might be additional traitors within the security apparatus who had not yet been identified. Agent Foster assigned Mitchell to work with a team of investigators tasked with reviewing the backgrounds of all personnel who had access to sensitive information about royal security. The process was painstaking and required extreme discretion to avoid alerting potential conspirators who might still be operating within the system. The psychological impact of the investigation began to take its toll on Mitchell as he realized how thoroughly his workplace had been infiltrated by hostile forces. Colleagues he had trusted for years were now under suspicion, and every interaction had to be carefully analyzed for signs of deception or betrayal. The paranoia was justified, as the investigation revealed that the network had been gathering intelligence for far longer than anyone had initially suspected. A breakthrough came when analysts, decoding Petrov's communications, identified a pattern in the timing of information transfers that corresponded with specific government meetings. This suggested that someone with access to high-level policy discussions was providing real-time intelligence to foreign operatives. The implications were staggering, as it meant that Britain's most sensitive diplomatic and security decisions were potentially being monitored by hostile forces. Mitchell was assigned to assist in the surveillance of several high-ranking officials who had access to the type of information that was being leaked. The operation required him to learn new skills in electronic surveillance and behavioral analysis, as traditional security training had not prepared him for the complexities of counterintelligence work. The investigation revealed that the architect was likely someone with decades of experience in British intelligence or military operations, someone who understood the system well enough to exploit its weaknesses. The sophistication of the network's operations and their detailed knowledge of security protocols suggested that the mastermind had once been a trusted insider who had turned against his own country. As weeks passed, Mitchell found himself drawn deeper into a world of deception and betrayal that challenged everything he had believed about loyalty and service. The investigation had revealed that the security services he had devoted his career to protecting had been compromised at multiple levels, and that the threat to national security was far more serious than anyone had initially understood. The pressure intensified when intercepts revealed that the network was planning additional operations to target other foreign dignitaries visiting Britain. The successful prevention of Prince Abdullah's assassination had not ended the threat, but had merely forced the conspirators to adapt their methods and choose new targets. Mitchell realized that his initial warning about a suspicious individual near the palace had uncovered a conspiracy that threatened the very foundations of British democracy and international relations. 6 weeks after the failed assassination attempt, Mitchell received an urgent message that would change the entire direction of the investigation. Agent Foster had discovered that one of the high-ranking officials under surveillance had been making unauthorized contact with foreign embassy personnel. The official was Sir Geoffrey Blackwood, a veteran diplomat with 40 years of service who had access to the most sensitive government communications. The revelation that Sir Geoffrey might be the architect sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. His position as deputy director of the Foreign Office meant that he had been present at countless security briefings and had access to information about diplomatic visits, trade negotiations, and military operations. If he was indeed working for hostile foreign powers, the damage to British interests could be incalculable. Mitchell was assigned to a special surveillance team tasked with monitoring Sir Geoffrey's activities without alerting him to the investigation. This required extraordinary discretion, as the target was an experienced intelligence professional who would quickly detect conventional surveillance methods. The team had to use the most advanced electronic monitoring equipment while maintaining complete secrecy about their operations. The investigation revealed that Sir Geoffrey had been living well beyond his official salary for several years, with unexplained deposits in offshore bank accounts and a lifestyle that suggested additional sources of income. More damning was the discovery that many of the security breaches experienced by government facilities had occurred shortly after Sir Jeffrey had attended briefings about the affected locations. Mitchell learned that Sir Jeffrey's motivation for betraying his country appeared to be a combination of financial gain and personal resentment. Intercepted communications revealed that he felt his contributions to British diplomacy had been undervalued and that he deserved greater recognition and reward for his service. This psychological profile matched the pattern of many high-level traitors who justified their actions through feelings of being wronged by the system they served. The challenge for investigators was gathering sufficient evidence to prove Sir Jeffrey's guilt while preventing him from discovering the investigation and either fleeing the country or destroying incriminating evidence. The operation required careful coordination between multiple agencies and absolute secrecy to prevent the conspiracy from being exposed prematurely. A breakthrough came when Mitchell and his team intercepted a coded message between Sir Jeffrey and an unknown contact discussing plans for the next phase of their operations. The message referenced upcoming visits by several foreign leaders and contained information that could only have come from the highest levels of government. This provided the evidence needed to move forward with the investigation. Agent Foster developed a plan to expose Sir Jeffrey by feeding him false information about a fictional security operation and then monitoring to see if that information was passed to hostile operatives. The plan was risky, as it required creating convincing false intelligence that would not compromise legitimate security operations while providing irrefutable proof of Sir Jeffrey's betrayal. Mitchell played a crucial role in the operation by ensuring that the false information was inserted into official channels in a way that would appear authentic to Sir Jeffrey while being tracked by investigators. The psychological pressure was intense, as any mistake could either expose the investigation or allow the traitor to escape justice. The trap worked perfectly when surveillance teams observed Sir Jeffrey meeting with a known foreign operative to pass along the fabricated intelligence. The meeting was recorded from multiple angles, providing undeniable evidence of his treasonous activities. However, the investigators had to wait for the right moment to make their arrest to ensure they could capture the entire network. The final phase of the operation began when Sir Jeffrey was arrested during a routine security briefing, preventing him from warning his associates or destroying evidence. Simultaneous raids were conducted on his residence, office, and known meeting locations, resulting in the seizure of thousands of documents and electronic devices containing evidence of the conspiracy. Mitchell watched from the observation room as Sir Jeffrey was interrogated by experienced counterintelligence officers. The former diplomat initially maintained his innocence but gradually broke down when confronted with the overwhelming evidence of his betrayal. His confession revealed the full extent of the network's operations and identified additional conspirators who had not yet been discovered. The revelation that such a high-ranking official had been working for foreign powers sent shockwaves through the British government. Emergency security reviews were ordered for all personnel with access to classified information, and diplomatic relationships with several countries came under scrutiny as investigators sought to understand the full scope of the intelligence that had been compromised. As the investigation neared its conclusion, Mitchell reflected on how a single moment of alertness and professional instinct had led to the exposure of one of the most significant espionage networks in British history. His decision to report suspicious activity near the palace had ultimately revealed a conspiracy that threatened national security at the highest levels and demonstrated the ongoing vulnerability of democratic institutions to infiltration by hostile forces. 3 months after Sir Jeffrey Blackwood's arrest, Mitchell stood in the secure briefing room at Thames House as the final report on Operation Royal Shield was presented to senior officials from across the British intelligence community. The investigation had uncovered a network of 17 operatives working across government, military, and private sector organizations, all coordinated by Blackwood and his foreign handlers. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Documents recovered from the network revealed that hostile foreign powers had been systematically gathering intelligence on British diplomatic initiatives, military capabilities, and economic policies for over 5 years. Trade negotiations worth billions of pounds had been compromised. Military exercises had been observed by enemy forces, and sensitive diplomatic communications had been intercepted and analyzed by hostile intelligence services. Mitchell learned that his initial observation of Viktor Petrov near the palace gates had prevented not just the assassination of Prince Abdullah, but potentially a series of attacks designed to destabilize British international relationships. Intelligence recovered from the network showed plans to target diplomatic facilities, disrupt major cultural events, and even compromise the security of other royal family members during their official duties. The investigation had revealed weaknesses in the security clearance process that allowed individuals like Walsh and others to be recruited despite their vulnerabilities. New protocols were being implemented to provide better support for personnel facing financial difficulties, while also improving the detection of potential security risks before they could be exploited by hostile forces. Agent Foster, who had become Mitchell's partner throughout the extended investigation, presented him with classified documents showing the international impact of their success. The exposure of Blackwood's network had led to similar investigations in allied countries, resulting in the identification and arrest of additional operatives working for the same foreign intelligence services. The operation had effectively dismantled a major espionage network that had been operating across Europe and North America. Mitchell was offered the opportunity to transition from royal protection duties to full-time counterintelligence work, recognizing his natural aptitude for detecting threats and his proven ability to handle complex security operations. The offer represented a significant career advancement and the chance to continue protecting national security at a higher level. But it also meant leaving behind the traditions and ceremonies that had originally drawn him to royal service. The psychological impact of the investigation had been profound for everyone involved. Mitchell had learned that the security services he had trusted implicitly were vulnerable to infiltration, and that the threat to national security came not just from external enemies but from trusted insiders who had chosen to betray their oath of service. This knowledge would forever change his approach to security work and his understanding of the complexities of modern espionage. The final arrests of network members took place simultaneously across Europe, coordinated between multiple intelligence agencies to prevent any conspirators from escaping justice. The operation demonstrated the importance of international cooperation in combating sophisticated espionage networks and highlighted the ongoing threat posed by hostile foreign powers to democratic institutions. Prince Abdullah, who had been briefed on the full scope of the threat he had faced during his visit to London, personally thanked Mitchell for his vigilance and professionalism. The successful protection of the Saudi prince had strengthened diplomatic relationships between Britain and the Middle East, leading to expanded cooperation in counter-terrorism efforts and increased intelligence sharing between allied nations. Mitchell accepted the position in counterintelligence, recognizing that his experience with Operation Royal Shield had prepared him for a career in protecting national security at the strategic level. His new role would involve working with international partners to identify and neutralize threats before they could develop into active operations against British interests. The lessons learned from Operation Royal Shield led to significant reforms in security procedures across government agencies. New training programs were implemented to help security personnel identify potential insider threats, while improved support systems were established to assist personnel facing personal difficulties that might make them vulnerable to recruitment by hostile forces. As Mitchell began his new career in counterintelligence, he reflected on the chain of events that had begun with a single moment of professional instinct. His decision to report suspicious activity had not only saved lives and prevented an international crisis, but had also exposed systemic vulnerabilities that threatened national security. The experience had taught him that in the world of modern espionage, vigilance and attention to detail could mean the difference between security and catastrophe. The story of Operation Royal Shield became a case study used in training programs for security professionals around the world, demonstrating how individual awareness and professional dedication could uncover and defeat sophisticated threats to national security. Mitchell's transformation from Royal Guard to counterintelligence operative represented the evolution of security challenges in the modern world, where threats could come from any direction, and vigilance remained the price of freedom.